Can everyone hear me and see me? It's good. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So my name is Tatiana Tungli, and I'm a PhD student here at the University of Aberdeen. I'm currently in my second year, but I've only joined a month ago. So I'm quite a new face here. And I'll be talking to you about the accessibility or inaccessibility. We'll find out of the out-of-classroom opportunities and activities for students and subsequent consequences for disabled competing students, and specifically in Scotland. So currently, there's 1 in 5 people in the UK have some sort of a disability or medical condition. And there is an increase in the number of students with disability, not only in Scotland, but across the whole of the UK. So there was almost 20% of students in the for the latest data that is available with declared disability to the university. This does not include those that chose not to disclose a disability but may still require reasonable accommodations. Also, people with disabilities in general are across the most socially economically disadvantaged groups. Okay. While, and I'll tell you how it's related, Scotland's STEM sector, but especially with focus on digital skills, the technology sector, is for a number of years actually has been experiencing skills shortages and lacking workforce, with increase in demand for the workforce. What is also quite interesting is that graduates who are applying for these roles, the roles within the sector that is lacking skills, have generally very good technological knowledge or industry-specific knowledge, but what they're lacking are the transferable skills that are increasingly sought by employers. And when I say increasingly sought by employers, with the recent study that was done on the graduate outcomes and employability skills, 72% of employers mentioned that the transferable skills are actually more important to them than the industry-specific skills when they're hiring graduates. However, the in-class experience is very much focused on the development of industry-specific skills. The transferable skills are primarily developed in the out-of-classroom experience. And students spend only very, very small amount of time in class. If you look at that average Scottish university, that's 12 to 15 hours of in-class contact, and maybe an ideal scenario of a couple of hours of self-directed study at home. Ideal scenario, I'm saying, because we've all been undergraduate students at some point in our lives, and I'm not saying everyone, but I personally know from my experience that some of my coursework were done last minute, so I might have not studied regularly. So how is that all related, or how does it translate to competing students with disabilities? If we look at the employment of technology graduates 15 months after graduation, we can see that individuals without disabilities are more likely to be in full-time employment after graduation than individuals without disabilities. Also, if we look more closely at the groupings of other or individuals who are unemployed, so other, we don't really know what that stands for from the data that has provided. Individuals with disabilities represent 13% of that, while individuals without disabilities represent only 9%. If we look at the average income of Scottish computing graduates specifically, and employment, individuals without disabilities are on average likely to earn 2,500. Individuals without disabilities are on average likely to earn 2,500 more than individuals with disabilities. If we were to break it even further, the difference can be up to 5,000 annually. So what the data shows, what the statistics shows us is the facts, is what it is like, but what it doesn't show us is why it is so. Before I tell you why it is, or one of the reasons why it is so, because there's plenty of reasons why it is so, the reason I'm going to have a look at is the out of classroom activities and the transferable skills they help individuals to develop. So what are the out of classroom activities, and where can students or we possibly find them? First, they are the curricular activities. So these are embedded into the program of studies, and normally they are the credit-bearing tasks. So they're part of the curriculum or the degree that students are studying towards. They are also co-curricular activities. So they're not normally a part of the program the students are studying, and they are not credit-bearing tasks, but they're also part of the learning and teaching experience. And the last one are the extracurricular activities, which normally we can associate with the student unions activities such as sports and societies. So what are the advantages of participation in the out of classroom opportunities? They're one of the primary factors for students' integration into the institution, and also for the development of the sense of belonging, which is directly related to students' retention long-term at the university. Participant in recreational activities or sports also has a positive impact on the overall well-being of individuals. It doesn't matter whether they have a disability or not. It is proven that in overall well-being of individuals, physical or mental, is improved within these activities. And also retention, well-being, and employability are the most important for students with disabilities. There's also proven link in the participation in the out of classroom activities and improved employability prospects. So what are the skills? What skills are we talking about? There is a wide range of skills that the out of classroom opportunities help to develop to individuals, and these are not listed in any particular order. But it is very important to know that not all activities that individuals participate in help to develop the same skills equally. So participation in recreational activities and sports activities helps with the development of leadership, teamwork, and the improvement of physical and mental well-being, while activities related to more representative nature, such as being a program rep, help with communication, networking, decision-making, problem-solving, and resilience a little more. So there's also the difference between the activities and the skills that they have to develop for individuals. So how is this related, and what does the legislation say about inclusion of students in the out of classroom activities? I focused on two primary pieces of legislation, which is Equality Act 2010 and the Public Sector Equality Duty, because these are the two core pieces of legislation that all universities must adhere to in their functions. Although not the Equality Act, nor the Public Sector Equality Duty directly mention the out of classroom opportunities, they can be extended to the out of classroom opportunities, because universities must ensure full inclusion of students in all aspects of their lives. So how is this being implemented in institutional policies? I did have a look at all available policies, either disability-specific policies or inclusion policies of universities, and there are huge differences in how the legislation is implemented or worded in university policies, and there are huge differences in the provision of accommodations, to students with disabilities. Mostly universities or policies are focused on access to curriculum or inclusion in curriculum-specific activities rather than the out-of-classroom activities. And when we look at the different barriers that students may be experiencing, these tend to be mostly focused around the physical barriers to participation. So arguably, we can say that maybe the student unions are the primary provider of extracurricular activities to students. So we should have a look at them in the first place. And this is where things are getting a little more interesting. Because students' unions, although they do provide the very many out-of-classroom opportunities for students, they are independent organizations, which means that things like public sector equality duty does not apply to them. They still need to adhere to the Equality Act, so they still have to make sure that all the members and the beneficiaries of their services are not discriminated against. However, they don't need to have policies in place. This is why less than half of students' unions across Scotland have any sort of EDI or disability-specific policies. What that means is that it is very hard to measure to what extent students are actually included in the out-of-classroom opportunities that are provided by the student unions, which is not so ideal scenario. We can argue that majority of extracurricular activities are actually embedded within the function of students' unions. Also, what's interesting is that student unions are primarily funded from universities, and universities get most of their money from the Scottish Funding Council. The conditions, some of the conditions for universities to get funding from Scottish Funding Council is that they have to adhere to the Public Sector Equality Duty and Equality Act. They have to measure their equality outcomes, and they have to publish them. So if the Scottish Funding Council funds the universities, and universities fund their student unions, and the Public Sector Equality Duty applies to universities but doesn't apply to student unions, this creates a very interesting atmosphere, which I think deserves looking at. So what we can conclude from this that there is quite a gap in the inclusion of students in the out-of-classroom opportunities across universities. If we look specifically at the policies that are in place across institutions, what we can conclude, though, is that every university is committed to providing at least the minimum required support to students, which does not, unfortunately, always extend to the out-of-classroom opportunities. Some and mostly is only constrained to the curriculum accommodations. So the big question is, what are the lived experiences of students with disabilities at universities? And this is very much what I'm trying to find out with my thesis. So I did speak to a couple of students, and I did run a couple of questionnaires aimed at computing and STEM students with disabilities, trying to find their lived experiences. And I do still have quite a lot of work left to do, especially with data analysis. But yeah, that still remains a question, because we don't know. There are some things that we can do in the meantime until I come up with my conclusions. So when we plan any activity, such as today's talk, we can ask ourselves some questions. So is the inclusion part of the activity planning or an afterthought? Is the location easily accessible? Are the instructions how to get to places, what to bring, what to wear clear? Is the technology working properly? Are there any potential sensory triggers that could be removed or students should be informed about? And this is very specific to students who are neurodivergent, and they do form the largest part of student population. But also, for example, for students who may have epilepsy. If there is any food provided, is it catering to food intolerances? But if you're unsure, the general question is just ask. And that's everything from me. Thank you very much.